I made a mock-up for a fake game. This actually started out as my entry for the Nokia Art Jam 3, hosted by Polydux. The purpose of the jam was to create a single image explaining what game James Bond is playing here. But as I tend to do, I got carried away. So not only did I make an image, but I also created full animations, items, result screens. My very favorite thing I did at the very last step, and that was drawing a title screen. Given that all of these elements could actually be useful for a real mock-up for a real game, I thought this would be handy stuff to go over. So let's go over it. Here we go! Hey guys, I'm Andrew Robinson of Robinson Pixels. Now this jam required every entry to be 1-bit. If you don't know what that means, it's a type of pixel art that only uses 2 colors total. Think like Tamagotchis or like old cell phone games. You would think it'd be easier since it's only 2 colors, but it actually kind of makes things a little bit more difficult, especially when you're working at small sizes. As for that prompt, what is Bond playing and why does it make him so happy? What does he even like? Girls. He likes girls, but he's a little bit deeper. He also likes spy stuff like cool glasses and martinis. Okay, I can work with that. Level 1, the shaker. All right, so I'm working with a tiny size right here. It's 96 by 65 pixels. This is an itty bitty workspace, but it's what was required for this entry. Now, I'm designing a cocktail shaker right here, and this is for a Tetris-inspired game. You have to get olives in the game to make it progress. The ice cubes actually block the olives, so as they get dropped in, ice cubes are gonna float on the top. You have to try and make sure that they do not prevent you from getting olives where you want them. And then also you're dropping in the booze, and that raises the liquid level. It's kind of like the timer for the game. I will say I did draw the wrong drink, and I'm not gonna fix that. Turns out, olives are only in most martinis, and James Bond likes a little lemon twist. Well, then I went through and revised it, got this thing where I wanted it to be. But how are the ingredients added into this, right? Are they just dropping at random, or is there someone who's adding those ingredients? Level 2, the girl in a martini glass. That's the thing about James Bond, right? He likes girls and martinis, so we're gonna work with that. So first, I'm drawing in the girl who's gonna be adding this stuff. I use a process that I call pixel sketching, and that's using a brush at a low opacity over and over so you can kind of find the shapes that you're working with, like you're really kind of drawing. Then I'm inking and coloring this character in. I shrink her down over this course to make it a little bit of a better gameplay experience. The smaller you make your characters, I will say, the more difficult the proportions become. Like it's harder to draw hands and feet and stuff because you don't have any room. And this is where I ended up. Now we got the black background, it's gray right now, but it is required to be black by the time I do the entry. And the reason that I like this is it's got a little bit more pizzazz, right? It's a little cooler and edgier for the theme of this spy game. And of course that experience is gonna be tied to the gameplay. So let's actually create that in level 3, gameplay elements. Now at first I thought maybe she could have some hearts up here, like a little heart counter, but that doesn't make any sense for this style of game, so that goes. What doesn't go are these ingredients that I'm drawing in this bottom section down here. And I add a little container for them, and then this dotted line kind of gives you the idea that they're able to come up. Because the purpose of the game is for stuff to shoot up from here, and then she has to kick them over here. Maybe you're doing like 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the keypad to determine the strength of the kick, and that tells which slot it's gonna fall into. For this olive, since it's gonna be flying up, I did a little stretch here, and that's just an animation technique. It's part of squash and stretch, and for this, I thought it would make sense for it to be stretching during that upward motion. And there we have it. What I ended up submitting was essentially this right here, but I wanted to see what it would look like if the other leg were up, right? And that's what got me going on this whole thing of creating everything under the sun, because I kept thinking, yeah, but would this work? Would it? Could it? Let's find out. Level 4, animations. First, I'm drawing in her other leg kicking. There's a lot of copying and pasting just to get it in there and looking pretty much right. We get that down, and here we have it. So now she needs to actually be animated, so she needs some more frames. And this is where I landed right here. So first we've got her swinging her leg up to kick, I did kind of hide this downward foot in the background of these ones so it wouldn't be distracting. And then for this one, she's already got this leg up, so that swoop is actually that under leg swinging up. So this comes down mid-process as that one finishes its animation. Let's see what it actually looks like in motion. Look, this is kicking. Isn't that a fun little time? Now, I will say, I didn't sprite all of those things individually in a vacuum. When I was actually building them out, I had them on that screen with the cocktail shaker, and I was animating everything together to make sure it actually all worked. First up was that olive, moving it along into the right spot. So the olive goes up. During the kick, it's squashing. So it changes that shape a little bit and it makes it a little more rubbery. Next is for moving that booze shot upward though. I took that initial droplet picture and I flipped it so that it would be going up, moving forward, and then I modified the shape during the kick to make it look like it's moving. I did just a couple of frames for the splash effect. So you've got basically those two together. And then I start raising that alcohol level within the drink. And I played around with making it look natural. So where I land is actually, the splash is right here. That side fills up with the tile for that level right there, higher. And then the rest of it catches up. So that helps it look more like it's filling in from one section first. For the ice cube to be kicked in, I didn't squash or stretch it because, well, it's a block, but I did make it bounce a little bit once it gets down into the booze, so you can see it's a little more natural during that process. So let's see all of the gameplay together. Ta-da! That was 66 frames of animation. Like it was a lot. Because the player just kind of lost and filled it all up with the ice blocks there, I wanted to know what it would look like when you lose. What are the results? Level 5, Live and Let Die. I don't know why I decided each section is gonna have a pun name at level 5, so they're all gonna have puns from here forward. First thing was getting her in a sad pose. Just had to kind of redraw her arms and figure out what I wanted her to be doing. But there we go. I just drew in the text for that section, like one little pixel at a time. And because James Bond likes his martinis shaken and not stirred, then you lose by showing it stirred, which I figured would be like with a spoon. And then you have the option to try again, and I did jazz it up a little bit as well. Ta-da! You just lost. You gonna try again, yes or no? Level 6, Die Another Day. I'm gonna draw in a victory screen here. Now, if you losing is a spoon, then you winning is a shaker, right? But it's shaking. I need 6 frames in order to make that work, and specifically that's because I want the girl to be kicking on the left side of the screen and for the shaker to be shaking on the right side. Her kicks are 6 frames total, so this thing needs to be able to go back and forth within 6 frames. This is how I ended up with that. I started with that initial shaker and decided that that's actually an in-between frame. The key frames are the ones where it's at an angle. It doesn't look perfect here. There's some little sections that I could have fixed up, but I knew this thing's gonna be in motion. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect. Let's take a look. Aha! When you're creating stuff like this, the keyframes you want to add a little bit more time to during the animation to help it look a little more natural. The way that I did it is the in-betweens are at 15 frames per second, but the keyframes right here are at 10 frames per second. Now you wouldn't do that with every keyframe ever, but in this case, because the momentum is stopping here and then swinging again the other way, I wanted to make sure that that was visible. So now we've got a fully functional game mock-up. We've got the end screen if you lose, we got the end screen if you win. But what does it look like when you start the game? Level 007, Martinis Never Die. First thing I want to do is figure out what this character is going to look like on the title screen. I know I want like a large actual illustration here for this one, so I am doing multiple low opacity layers while I sketch her out and figure out what she looks like and what she's doing. Once I've got that, then I go through and I start inking the outline and getting all the shapes the way that I think that they should be for this. And then I go in and of course I color the character. Something that I gotta mention is the detailing on the hands was very difficult. So you do need to accept your limitations. I mean that a few ways, partly within your own abilities, I guess, but also within the medium. Her finger right here, that's only 1 pixel wide. There's not a lot of space. I struggled with the hands a lot. I'm rewinding now. You can see all the different versions of her hand that I drew. I couldn't figure out how to actually make it work at this size and look like a hand, you know? I looked at a lot of different references, all the different ways you can hold your glasses, and a lot of those methods, really, I couldn't figure out how to draw them at this size. It's too tiny. Once I was like, okay, you know what? Forget it. I'm gonna draw this the way that I can within the style that I'm working with, then it worked out a lot better, and I like the way that her hand actually looks here. Then I'll go through and, of course, add more details and what have you. At this point, I did kind of mess with her hair a little bit. The shape ends up being a lot like Tron Bonne from Mega Man Legends. I don't know why I did that, so I am gonna go back and re-flip it to match that original sprite a little bit later. Now, to do the text, y'all, I cheated here, and I think that's just fine. PicSquare has a text tool, so I literally just typed the text, right? But it wasn't 1-bit yet. So what I did was I just went through and I recolored the text that I typed. Then I had to go through and, of course, edit that to make it look a little bit better, but it still beat drawing it all by hand. The hardest part, which I was actually putting off and I thought I might not even do it, was drawing the glass. So I go through a few different options. A lot of people who do 1-bit art are really good at using dithering techniques, but I didn't feel like it really worked right here in this case. I think it kind of just cluttered the image too much. So where I land is just drawing in some little shiny sections as if this were glass. And yeah, went through, I fixed her hair back to where it was supposed to be, and then I was done. Let's go check it all out in a big final reveal thingy. Blue point, blue point, splash, blue point, blue point, blue point. Aww. Yay! And that's it. Of course, designing a mock-up for a game is just one part of development. Now, I don't have a lot of experience, but I have gotten paid professionally before. So if you want to check out my video where I go over what that process was like and what I learned, you can check out this video right over here and follow along for more pixel practice. Gonna do the screen recorder on. Gonna do my screen recorder on. So let's take a look at some of those parts of it. So let's take a